guys, how about you grab your Feldenkrais roller and maybe a ball. Doesn't have to be a soft squidgy ball, just something you can put between your knees to help to hold your legs in a parallel, and a theraband if you have one, but not absolutely essential either. And let's just go through the sort of Feldenkrais warm-up that we do before ballet class, the rolling, massaging, easing, relaxing, and then I'll go through the Pilates warm-up, some of the Pilates work on the Feldenkrais. Yeah, let's have some fun. I'll try to stay in frame here. If you get the roller underneath the shoulder blades, sort of at the bottom of your shoulder blades, and then allow the spine to release into a delicious extension. If you want to put something under your head, if you feel like your head needs support, do that. Otherwise, just allow the neck to relax and the weight of the head to fall down toward the floor. If it's comfortable for your shoulders, your arms are lengthened over your head and the backs of the hands are on the floor. And we take some deep breaths here and just opening the front body, allowing the breastbone to release up toward the ceiling. As you inhale, really expanding through the front and the sides of the rib cage. And being aware of the long line from the top of the breastbone all the way down toward the pubic bone. So the whole front body is opening and expanding into the extension. And then be aware of the extension through the spine. So awareness from the base of the skull all the way down to the tip of the tailbone. Spread the feet really wide on the floor. So ground the heels, be aware of the medial and the lateral arches. Spread the metatarsals wide on the floor and spread the toes. And you might want to take a little sort of row your boat through your pelvis. So a little figure 8 through the sit bones, one sit bone reaching up and forward as the other one carves down into the floor and backwards. So sort of a cycling, bicycling motion through the sit bones so that you're lengthening through either side of the waistline, lengthening through the lumbar. And taking a big inhale and spreading the palms wide, spreading the fingers wide, spreading the toes wide. And maybe a nice big yawn as you exhale. Maybe bug your eyes, stick your tongue out, stretch your face. And then you're going to slowly work your Feldenkrais roller down your spine. And you'll find there are places that just don't feel good at all. And maybe you can just fast forward through those. Or maybe you want to spend a bit more time there. Adjust the position of your arms as you need to. And so just working the Feldenkrais roller down through the back of the rib cage and taking your spine through extension, really being aware of the point of contact between the roller and your back, and being aware if you're holding tension there and sort of resisting, or if you can use your breath and relax around the point of contact. And so keeping the roller working its way down the back of the rib cage, down through the lumbar region, I'm catching my scarf, and all the way down towards the pelvis. When you get that roller across your lumbar, you might want to really spend a little time there. And again, maybe rocking your pelvis right to left. And encouraging those muscles on either side of the spine to release around the point of contact with the roller. Using your breath to soften the muscles and release. I'm going to scooch forward a little bit so I don't roll out of the frame. But keep your roller working its way down across the lumbar, keeping a little tick-tock seesaw side to side with the pelvis. And then you arrive with the roller underneath your sacrum. And pause there. And you really want to imagine that sacrum is very heavy. And surrendering the weight of the pelvis into the roller, into the floor. Almost imagine the back of your pelvis were melting and expanding laterally. And maybe here you want to take your feet a little wider and allow your knees to drop together to give you an even greater sensation of expansion and width across the back of the pelvis. And breathing into any discomfort that you're feeling there. You might want to take the opportunity to get your fingers and give yourself a little massage on the inside of the iliac crests. That can feel a little sort of delicious, disgusting as you do it. Just releasing some of those insertions of muscles. Maybe you can massage also a little bit into your hip flexors. You really need a strong sort of clawing through the fingers. So your thumbs are massaging on the outside of the iliac crest, and your fingers are gently excavating on the inside of the iliac crest. And then bringing your legs back into parallel. This could be a moment where you could place the ball between your knees to keep your legs in parallel. And being aware of really grounding all 10 metatarsals on the floor. Maybe you want to keep your hands on your hips. And take that little row your boat, pedaling, seesaw, figure 8 motion through the pelvis. So you're gently massaging the back of the pelvis on the roller. And again, lengthening through the lumbar region and lengthening either side of the waistline as you go. Really deep breaths. Spread the shoulder blades wide on the floor and really surrender the upper back to the floor as you're massaging the pelvis on the roller. If you've got a really soft roller, this might not feel as delicious as if you've got a hard roller. So if you've got more than one roller, you might try switching them out, because different, different densities, I guess, of the roller really give you a different sensation, and they're more useful if you're massaging, rolling out your muscles, or using them for support during the core exercises. So bringing the pelvis to stillness, and you want to ground the weight into the feet and into the upper back, and just gently release your pelvis off the roller, roll the roller down so it's just resting by your heels, and place your pelvis on the floor and take a second there and rest. Maybe pop the ball out and allow the knees to fall together again. Just feeding your femur heads back into your hip sockets, so it's complete release through the pelvis and through the hip sockets. And take this opportunity to send your breath into the back of your rib cage. And maybe you want to take one hand on the other and then place your hands on your breastbone. And as you breathe, feel that your breastbone is constantly falling down toward the floor. So as we get going with the core exercises, we want to avoid inhaling and expanding the front body. So the inhalation here that lifts the breastbone, we're trying to reprogram that with a constant sensation of the breastbone falling backwards in space. and we send the breath into the back and the sides of the rib cage. So if you place your hands on the sides of your ribs, you want to feel that as you inhale, the rib cage is moving outwards into your palms. So expanding laterally. And you can feel the back of your rib cage expanding into the floor. And if you place hands across the abdomen, we have a little red flag, which we call bread in the oven. So when you inhale and you feel the abdomen floating up into your hands, floating up toward the ceiling, it's like bread rising in the oven. And we're trying to avoid that during the core exercises. So when we activate our abdominals, they're always scooping back toward the spine. So from the pubic bone to the belly button to the base of the sternum, you'll have this sensation of scooping ice cream as opposed to bread in the oven. Yeah? So correct activation of the abdominals connected with your breathing. Exhaling, the breath is coming out of the mouth with a gentle hissing sound. There's a scooping, like the ice cream scoop, of the abdominals back toward the spine. There's the breastbone softening constantly toward your back body, and the side and back ribs expanding as you inhale. The image we use for the exhalation is that you're wearing a corset, a gentle, kind corset. So when you exhale, you feel as if you're just gently drawing the lacing together on the back of your corset, which is allowing you to close the rib cage, breath coming out of the mouth, and scooping the ice cream. Okay. Let's take the roller back up toward the shoulder blades, and we'll get going. So getting back to that position we were in, we first started to work through the extension of the spine. The arms are overhead, backs of the hands are on the floor, top of the head is on the floor. And you feel that delicious opening through the front body and the extension. This will be your place of inhalation, and as you exhale, the arms are floating up toward the ceiling, shoulder blades away from the ears, head, neck, and shoulders are curling forward, spreading the feet wide on the floor, scooping your ice cream to release the pelvis off the floor. You roll the roller down toward the lumbar region, and you have this upper body curl. Hamstrings are engaged, glutes are not. Inhaling into extension, and exhaling, flexion. Inhaling to extend the spine, exhaling to flex. So you're getting a massage through your thoracic region and into the lumbar, and you're getting a little bit of a wakey-wakey for your abdominals. Keeping your eyes open so that you can cluck if you've got bread in the oven in this place, which is going to be, I'm exaggerating so you can see, or if you've got scooping ice cream. Inhaling to extend, and exhaling into flexion. Twice more. Inhaling to extend. Might feel the hamstrings beginning to talk to you. Exhaling to flex. Inhaling to extend. And exhaling into flexion. And just release the pelvis to the floor. Take your hands to the back of the legs so you can make sure as you roll yourself up off of your roller that you have no bread in the oven. And stretch the legs up in front of you. Press the palms up toward the ceiling and just release the hamstrings for a second. So if you're holding on to the feet or the ankles or the shins or the knees, it doesn't really matter. So long as you're having this feeling of extending top of the head and the tailbone away from each other, sit bones and heels away from each other, just to lengthen the back of the leg, keeping the quadriceps released and the knees relaxed. You can take a little walk through the sit bones to open up the back of the legs. Actually, that's a good place if you want to just give your feet a little massage. So using your thumbs and sort of excavating in between the metatarsals, doing a little metatarsal mining. Yeah, that feels good. Okay, and then we'll take the roller onto your lumbar. Woo-hoo. And this is a very small range of motion. So pressing into your feet, grounding through your feet, spreading the toes really wide, keeping the upper body curl, and it's just like maybe 1 or 2 inches that you're rolling back and forth over your lumbar. And the job here, every time you press into your feet, we exhale. And your job is to make sure there's no bread in the oven. And release. Woo-hoo, puppy. Okay. Bringing the pelvis back, bringing the roller underneath your pelvis again. We'll just take a second here and do a little bit of pelvic stabilization and releasing the femur and the hip socket into the hip flexion. So you can take your hands onto your hips, and as we did before, spread the shoulder blades nice and wide on the back of the rib cage. Feel the pelvis really heavy falling into the roller. And be aware of the alignment here, the 2 hip bones and the pubic bone. Obviously your body is lengthened up on the diagonal. So your neutral pelvis can be established in any alignment. And it just means that your 2 hip bones and your pubic bone are in the same plane. So in this case, 2 hip bones and pubic bone on this diagonal line is determined by the height of your roller. On the exhalation, breath coming out of the mouth, engaging your core set, scooping your ice cream, releasing your right foot just off the floor. So we're not pushing to saute off the floor, right? It's more like you have a fishing rod in your pelvis and you're reeling that femur and reeling that knee up, reeling your foot off the floor. So there's an easy floating sensation. And your job is to make sure the pelvis stays completely neutral as you do that. So there might be a very slight falling of the right hip down and the left hip lifting up. And so you want to draw that left side of the pelvis back down onto the roller. Imagine you have this diagonal line from your right shoulder to your left hip and stabilize across that line. Exhaling to release that right foot back down toward the floor. So both hands on your hip, or if you want to, right hand on your hip, left hand on your left shoulder. As you exhale, corset, super ice cream scoop to take your left foot off the floor. So you're reminding yourself, stabilize left shoulder and right hip as you allow the flexion to increase through the left. Exhale, super scoop, and release the left foot back down toward the floor. And we'll do it a couple times on either side. So exhaling, breath out of the mouth, belly button scoops in and up. Stabilize your left shoulder to your right hip as you release the right foot off the floor. And then exhale to release the foot back down. Opposite side, exhaling, super scoop to release the left foot off the floor. Keep the sensation of the pelvis really heavy and falling into the roller. And also be aware that your standing leg stays in the parallel. So chances are, I'm releasing my right foot off the floor here. Chances are my left foot wants to sort of fall out away from the center line. So I want to keep awareness on the sole of the foot so that you're grounding your heel, you have equal energy fanning out through all 5 metatarsals, and your toes are spread wide on the floor, as if you were standing with all of your weight on that foot. Exhale, scooping belly button in and up to release your fishing rod and take that left foot back down toward the floor. Okay.
Once again, spread the feet wide on the floor, release your pelvis just a smidgen off the roller. When you do that, have the sensation that your pelvic bones are drawing towards center. So we've been lying there and sort of splaying and spreading the pelvis. So in order to activate the core, draw everything towards center, toward the center of your pelvis. Hamstrings engage, release the pelvis off the roller, roll the roller out, and release your pelvis back onto the floor. Take a second and rest. Bring the knees together. Take the feet apart a little bit. Allow the femur heads to drop into the hip sockets. And release the pelvis on the floor. And then you can draw the knees up into your hands. Take a second, release the lumbar spine onto the floor and make circles with your knees in the same direction. So keeping the knees and ankles sort of skewered together and allowing the pelvis to circle around in one direction and then reverse the circle in the opposite direction. So you're releasing the lumbar curve on the floor and then moving back through your neutral lumbar curve and everything in between. Press the knees into your hands, allow the arms to stretch, curl head, neck, and shoulders off the floor, open your eyes, make sure you've got ice cream scooping and no bread in the oven. Keep reaching your knees into your hands to roll yourself all the way up. And then we're going to massage the back of the legs with the roller. So you're sitting on your roller, backs of the hands are on the floor, keeping the shoulder blades drawing away from the ears, so keeping those lat muscles engaged. And we'll just take a little roll, backwards and forwards, across the hamstrings. You can allow your femurs to roll from internal to external rotation. And see if you find any places on the thighs where you might need to just give a little extra attention, any places that feel a little bit tight and gnarly. And what you can do is cross one leg over the other, and that way you get a little bit more weight going through the point of contact as you're rolling those hamstrings out. So you can be aware here of how you're activating the core. Keep scooping the abdominals back towards your spine. If you've crossed one leg over the other, just switch legs so that you can get a little more sensation through the back of the other leg. And then we'll roll through the IT band. So rolling over onto your side, I've got the right foot on the floor. Actually, I'll be your mirror. I've got my left foot on the floor and I'm rolling my right IT band. So once again here, we don't want to collapse in the upper body. So open the hands on the floor like the way you use your feet. Spread your hands really wide on the floor and keep your shoulder blades away from your ears. And then rolling across the IT band. So if you find a spot that needs a little extra attention, go ahead and give it a little extra attention and a little extra breath at the same time. And then switching sides. So this will be left leg on the roller and right foot on the floor. And just be aware, depending on the length of your arms, you may need to come up on the fingertips or go down, or maybe it feels good to do this on your forearm. Doesn't really matter. So long as you've got a nice point of contact and that feeling of deliciousness as you release your weight. So one of the things that we were talking about is you can do this and sort of hold your weight up off of the roller, and then it's not as delicious. So if you relax into the point of contact, really allow the muscles to go and melt around the roller, and then you kind of get the full benefit of that sort of rolfing, self-rolfing sensation. Then we can roll over and do the same thing with the quads. So on the forearms here, If you want to intertwine the fingers, that's fine, or palms on the floor, doesn't really matter. But important that we don't end up here, completely collapsed across the shoulders. So keep the shoulder blades away from the ears and away from the spine. Actually, why don't we do this here? So just a little exercise for our serratus anterior. You might find a spot that needs a little extra love on those quadriceps and just hang out there. Let's do energy out the top of the head and energy out the tailbone. So you've got a neutral line through your spine. So we don't want to go here into flexion through the thoracic spine, and we don't want to go here into sagging collapse through the lumbar. Yeah, so keep that zipping up sensation from the pubic bone to the belly button to the base of the sternum. 2 lines of energy, top of the head and tailbone in opposite direction, in order to maintain the neutral line through your spine. And we're going to go shoulder blades together toward the spine, very small range of motion, and shoulder blades apart away from the spine. So it's like a mini push-up. Shoulder blades together toward the spine, and the breastbone falls down toward the floor. Shoulder blades apart away from the spine, and the breastbone floats away from the floor. Just one more. Shoulder blades together toward the spine, breastbone floating down toward the floor. Watch this with the head here. So keep the base of the skull really floating up and away from the tailbone. Shoulder blades apart away from the spine. Okay, so in that position, with the shoulder blades apart away from the spine and also lengthened away from the ears, we can roll through the quads. And if you want to come up onto your palms, kind of get a different sensation. We can make that into a little bit of an awareness of the extension through the spine. So as the roller is rolling toward your pelvis, keeping your palms spread wide on the floor, careful that the elbows don't splay open. So the elbows are coming straight down toward the floor, engaging your lats so you don't collapse through the shoulders, and lengthening through your lumbar so we're not collapsing through the lumbar, keeping energy out through the top of the head. And then feel like the top of the head is on an elevator going all the way through the ceiling and up to the sky as the roller rolls towards your knees. So bending the elbows, allowing the roller to roll toward the pelvis, and now diving up into the sky as the roller rolls toward the knees. Using your breath. And keeping that feeling of scooping, zipping through the front body, pubic bone to belly button to the base of the sternum. So you're basically in an up dog here, but with the roller just at the distal end of your femur. Open the clavicles really wide and feel like you have a little light bulb on your breastbone. So here, the light bulb on my breastbone is sort of shining on the floor in front of me. I want to take that beam of light and draw a line up the wall in front of me and see if I can send that beam of light all the way up toward the sky without crunching the back of your neck. So keep the length through the cervical vertebrae. Whew, that's a lot of work on those shoulders. Relax for a second. Why don't you take the palms of the hands onto your roller. Release your forehead toward the floor. So you're in a child's pose with your palms on your roller. And you can try to see if you can get that roller to just gently roll away from you. So the shoulder blades are sliding up towards your ears. And you get that stretch right through the top of your lat muscle. And at the same time, in opposition to that movement, you're drawing the pelvis back towards your heels. So you feel this really lovely long stretch all the way through the lat muscle down into your sacrum. And rolling yourself all the way up to kneeling. Ha. Let's take the roller and roll out our calves. So palms are on the floor again behind you, fingers pointing towards you. And you figure out the right place for the roller, but crossing legs over so that you're now allowing point of contact to roll backwards and forwards along the calf. Or you can take a little sort of seesaw side to side motion. That feels a bit gnarly. Yeah, you can just feel the roller sort of kneading across the muscle fibers. So windshield wiper action or a little rolling backwards and forwards action. And make sure that you roll all the way down towards the ankle. So just use one foot to adjust the position of your roller when you need to. And switching legs. So crossing the roller over onto the other leg, the other calf, giving yourself the windshield wiper. Send your breath down into the places that feel a little uncomfortable. And maybe there's a place where you just want to hang out. Yeah, you might find sort of a little knot that you just want to keep constant pressure on, or that you want to do a little windshield wiper roly-poly release. And let it go. Just shake your wrists out maybe a little bit. Rub your palms together. Send some different signals from those hands to your brain. And let's take the roller onto your shins. This is less of a massage, or maybe if you've been running, that might feel good actually down the front of your shin. But thinking about our core here, so if we're on the palms, on the all fours, energy out the top of the head. Let me go this way a little bit. Energy out the top of the head and energy up the tailbone. So once again, we have a neutral alignment through the spine. So just be careful of this guy, where we're tucking the pelvis a little bit, or this guy, where you take the pelvis into an anterior tilt and you get an accentuation of the lumbar curve. Yeah, so a neutral spine here. This can also happen actually, especially when we draw the rolling pin in. The rolling pin, I'm not baking right now. The Feldenkrais roller. Okay, so feet are off the floor. If you start with the roller just underneath your knee, on the exhalation, you're drawing the roller in as it rolls down towards your ankles. Inhale to come back to your all fours position. Exhale, drawing in. Inhale to roll back. Exhale, drawing in. Inhale to roll back. So doing that a few times. Every time you exhale, feeling the scooping. So you're peeling the abdominals back towards your spine, zipping up from the pubic bone to the belly button to the base of the sternum. So the coordination is always exhale, activation, move. Exhale, activation of the core, and then move. Inhale, without releasing. So you keep the bread hidden away somewhere and you're scooping your ice cream. One more. Send it back, tuck your toes under, and just stretch out into your down dog. So take a second there, spread the feet really wide on the floor. Spread the hands wide on the floor. Maybe you want to walk through the hands and the feet. Shake your head no, and nod your head yes. Releasing the neck, releasing the base of the skull, feeling like you're just falling asleep with your head. So we're not thinking, we're feeling. Let your pelvis move up and back away from you on the diagonal. That takes a bit of weight out of the shoulders. Get a nice stretch through the lats. And then releasing all the way back down. Feels like we could do a little bit of a roll through the hip flexors. Be careful with this, because sometimes if you have any lymph nodes that are up in your groin, this really doesn't feel good. So yeah, just play with it, and if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. So I'm going to move my roller sideways and place my right hip on the roller, and my left leg is just bent at the side on the forearms, and allowing now that point of contact to be right at the top of those hip flexors. So the roller's just rolling just under the iliac crest and down into your thigh, just across the hip flexors. And again, if you go from an internal rotation through the parallel towards an external rotation, like I said, just being careful if you have some lymph nodes that might be up in your groin. And then just try that on the other side. So move your roller out the other way, bringing left hip onto the roller, bending your right leg at your side, weight on the forearms, and a really small range of motion, allowing that point of contact to move just under the iliac crest and across the hip flexors. And release that. All right, let's work our way down to lying on the roller. So bring yourself to sit on the edge of your roller. You might want to put your ball back between your knees. Spread your toes nice and wide on the floor. Ground through your heels. Keep your theraband near to you. We might get around to using it. Actually, Jill, you like to do this. So this might be helpful for you if you hold the theraband in your hands and gently drawing the theraband open. So gently drawing your hands open, yeah. Feeling the connection from the hands right down into the center of your pelvis. Drawing shoulder blades away from your ears and slowly rolling yourself down to lying on your roller. You might want to take the theraband around your legs as you roll down. That gives you a little extra support. But the idea here is that you're scooping front body onto back body, releasing back body into flexion. So we're not going back in a lateral and with a straight spine, with a neutral spine. You want to pull back just above your pubic bone so you feel how that pelvis just begins to turn under. And then you're peeling one vertebrae at a time down onto your roller. Fall asleep in your suit with your head. And the more you can soften the front body back in space, the more you can release the spine into flexion. And roll yourself all the way down to lying. Once you get there, you may need to adjust. So just take your body down towards the bottom of your roller so that your head can be lying on your roller. Now, when you get down, we're going to have to try to figure out a way to get back up. So if you want to keep your theraband in your hands, if that tension feels good to you, or you can do it with no theraband, or you can take your hands to the back of your legs, the exhale happens, the head, neck, and shoulders are curling off the roller, and you're scooping through the front body so you release the lumbar curve to the roller. Keep your eyes open so you can see if there's bread in the oven or ice cream in the freezer, and one vertebrae at a time, rolling yourself all the way back up to sitting. If you need to adjust so you don't fall off the roller, just adjust back a little bit. And let's try going down and up twice more. So, theraband, knees, back of the thighs, nothing, whatever floats your boat. Pull back just above the pubic bone, allow the tailbone to slide under, feel the sacrum widening on your roller, and then you have to pull back a little bit more than you think, just above the pubic, just below your belly button in order to release through the lumbar. And then be careful here as you roll through the upper thoracic spine that you don't pop the ribs open. So as you are in the final section of the roll down, you want to imagine that you've got two giant diaper pins or nappy pins that you're hooking from the base of your rib cage onto your iliac crest. so that as you roll through the upper thoracic spine, you keep the front of the ribs drawing down towards your hips and rolling yourself back up. So inhale happens and you expand the back of the rib cage, sides of the ribs. Exhale, fingers reach towards the front wall. Keep the clavicles open as you draw the shoulder blades down the back of the rib cage. Breath is coming out of your mouth. You're making a hissing sound if you're not talking. You release the lumbar curve to the roller. So you tuck the pelvis, hold over the back of the legs if you want to. Super scoop ice cream in the freezer to roll yourself all the way up. And we'll roll back down. So exhaling, drawing back just above the pubic bone, allowing the tailbone to slide underneath you, rolling through the sacrum. It's a little wobbly in there. Rolling through the lumbar. Put on your nappy pins, draw the front of the ribs down toward the hips, and lay the head down. Let's take a second there. So make sure you're comfortable on your roller. And just open your arms at shoulder level. Take awareness back to the soles of the feet and make sure those feet are spread wide on the floor. So as your arms are open at shoulder level, when you're completely relaxed, you can feel how your scapula are sort of hugging back towards the roller. Reach your fingertips apart away from each other and feel your scapula draw apart away from your spine. And then float your fingertips off the floor. So notice here, we're not lifting the arm. You're reaching your fingertips further away from you, and that makes your fingers float off the floor. So just release the back of the hands to the floor again and completely relax and release. Feel your scapula hugging, collapsing around the roller. Be aware of what's happening across the front body. And now reach through your arms. Reach. Let your arms get longer. Your fingertips are trying to touch the sides of the room. And you feel your scapula drawing away from your spine. And now, don't think about lifting your arms. Imagine your arms could get longer. So you reach the fingertips further away, and that's what makes them float off the floor. And now float your arms up with that reach away until they're parallel to the floor. And then from there, keeping the width across the clavicles and the width between your scapula, allow your arms to float up towards each other until they're parallel to each other. So be aware here that you haven't drawn your scapula around the sides of your rib cage and close your clavicles. So keeping clavicles wide. We're going to slide the fingertips up toward the ceiling and then drop them back down. So really dropping the humerus back into the shoulder socket. Fingertips slide up toward the ceiling. So you draw the humerus out of your shoulder socket and feel that scapula sliding around the side of the rib cage. And then plug the humerus back into the shoulder socket. Just do that twice more. So it's fingertips sliding up as you inhale. And exhale to feed the humerus back into the shoulder socket. And inhaling, sliding the fingertips up toward the ceiling. And exhaling to feed the humerus back into your shoulder socket. And then just collapse the arms and give yourself a hug. Allow the fingertips to fall down toward the floor. And just be aware of the points of contact here that you have with the roller. So sacrum, contact, lumbar, space, lower thoracic, bit of space, middle, upper thoracic, contact, cervical vertebrae, space, back of the head, contact. Soften your breastbone toward your back body and peel your arms open again. Let them relax on your sides, at your sides. Grab your theraband, well, don't grab it, actually you can just take it, hold it nicely, gently, kindly. Let's not grab anything right now. And Arms parallel to each other, holding the theraband and with that gentle pressure as you draw the hands away from each other, feeling that connection from the center of your pelvis. So if you take an exhalation and you draw the bones of the pelvis towards center, at the same time, you draw your hands away from each other. And you're going to allow the hands, the arms, to float back alongside your head. Go quite slowly. As the arms are floating back alongside your head, you're being aware of what's happening in your rib cage. So that's going to want to happen, yeah, where you pop your nappy pins and the lower ribs pop up toward the ceiling. And you want to be aware of that. And keep your safety pins, your nappy pins, your diaper pins engaged, locked even, gently. So the lower ribs are always dropping down toward the iliac crest, toward the hips. And you allow your arms to float back just as far as they can go without releasing the ribs. Now when you're holding your theraband, it'll be easier to keep your arms in line, but you might notice that maybe one shoulder is more flexible than the other, and maybe one arm could go further back toward the floor than the other. But let's keep the line of the least flexible shoulder, wherever that is. Exhaling, super scoop to draw the arms back up toward the ceiling. And just do it one more time. So making sure the pelvis stays neutral, the ribs stay neutral, and you float your arms back alongside your head, being aware of what's happening with the scapula. Keep them nice and wide on the back of the rib cage. And then from the center of the pelvis, we exhale. Draw the shoulder blades down the back of the rib cage. So you float the arms back up toward the ceiling. And then you're going to drop your theraband. Allow the arms to float alongside your body. We'll just take our little 100 breath. So we do exhale, fingertips are reaching all the way toward the front of the room, head, neck, and shoulders curving off the roller. The arms are pulsing down, 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 not up, down, up, down. So we're not flapping and trying to take off. It's more the sensation that there were a heavy spring that were attached to the ceiling and then attached to your wrist. So when the wrist is pulsing down, 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 there's a tension and a resistance in the movement, not just a flap. If you reach around and touch your lat muscle, you'll feel the lat muscles are engaged. So you're drawing that shoulder blade down away from your ear, drawing the arm down, fingertips reaching to the front of the room. Check out your bread in the oven or your ice cream. We pulse 5 to inhale and 5 to exhale. So we go inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep your head moving forward because this wants to happen as you go along. So you have to put a carrot or a brownie or a piece of broccoli or whatever you're into, hang it right here in the space above your belly button and keep coming forward to it. I lost count. Relax all the way down. Keep your nappy pins drawing down the front of the ribs and relax. Take the ball out and just relax completely. You can maybe open up into an X. Take a yawn. If your spine feels sore at any point in time, you can do all of these exercises just lying flat on the floor, on a yoga mat. Give yourself a bit of cushion. But if you're fine on the roller, then we'll continue there. You can put your ball back between your knees and your fingertips on the floor at your sides, like you're making a tripod, which would really be a quint pod with your hands. We're going to roll up into a little pelvic bridge, which feels a little odd on the roller because you're already so elevated. It feels like you don't have very far to go. So on the exhale, a super scoop to release the lumbar curve to the floor, and then let your knees reach away from you on the diagonal. Let your sit bones follow your knees up and away from you on the diagonal as you peel one vertebrae at a time up off your roller. So at the top, you've got one line from the pubic bone to the breastbone, and this long line from the hips out through the knees. So we don't want to end up here, where you have this flexion. So reach out through both knees until you have one long line from the hip out through the knee. Check out that you're not grabbing your glutes. There's some activation, but not a grabbing and a locking down in the glutes. Soften your breastbone on the exhale, one vertebrae at a time to roll back through the spine. You have to do a super scoop to really roll through the lumbar and then release your tailbone down to come back to neutral. Inhaling there, expand the ribs sideways, exhale, breath out of the mouth, super scoop, knees away from you on the diagonal, one vertebrae at a time to roll yourself up. Inhale at the top, exhale, soften the breastbone. So you soften the front body back towards the back body to facilitate the flexion through your spine. Coming back to neutral pelvis, so you have that little space between the lumbar curve and your roller. One more time, inhaling, expanding the ribs sideways. Exhale, super scoop, knees reaching away from you, sit bones reaching toward the knees, peeling up one vertebrae at a time. Inhaling at the top, exhale, breath out of your mouth to roll all the way back down. And then you can relax again, because that's a lot of work on the hamstrings. Okay. Let's go into our hip flexion. So, you've got your neutral pelvis now. Check it out. 2 hip bones, pubic bone in the same horizontal plane. Make sure you've dropped your ball from between your knees. Take your hands onto your hips so you can just be aware of the seesaw. Although when you're lying this way on the roller, the seesaw quickly gets exaggerated into like an SOS signal. So same as we did when we had the roller just underneath the pelvis. On the exhalation, releasing the right foot off the floor. And your job is to keep your pelvis completely neutral and your standing leg in parallel. Just do that a couple times because we did do it already in a different orientation. So just being aware of what's happening here as you're releasing one foot off the floor and you get that little tick-tock that happens in the roller. So we're attempting to stabilize as much as possible. And then what we'll do is we'll switch legs. So if we all start with that right foot off the floor, as much flexion as you can through the hip socket without disturbing your pelvis. If you want to keep your hands on your pelvis, then your elbows are sort of your points of stabilization, or you can keep your forearms on the floor. And on the exhale, we switch legs. So right toes go toward the floor as the left leg comes into the flexion. Exhale, switch. And when your toes go toward the floor, you're just like testing bath water. So you're not putting your whole foot flat on the floor. It's just the toes that barely touch the floor. And then exhale to switch. And exhale to switch. And the question arises, where's the inhale? Because I'm not saying inhale, exhale, right? So the inhale is really short. All you do is open your mouth, open your nose, which we never close, so that's happening anyways. Feel that you drop your, imagine, because this is hard to feel, but imagine you just drop your diaphragm down as you open your mouth, and the breath comes in. Switch. Little inhale. Drawing the ribs open sideways, expanding the back body. Switch. Little inhale. Exhale. Switch. Little inhale. Exhale. Switch. Last one. Little inhale. Exhale. Switch. Scooping from the pubic bone to the belly button to the base of the sternum, and keeping your core set closed. Draw both legs up. So again, forearms on the floor, hands on your hips, or maybe hands on the front of the rib cage, so you can really feel that you're keeping the front of the ribs closed and trying to expand back and side ribs. Can we keep the pelvis neutral as we drop both legs, not both legs, all 10 toes toward the floor? Test the bath water, feel the earthquake, exhale, draw the legs back up. So it's a little challenging, this one. Maybe you won't get all the way to the floor. Maybe it's enough just to go that far or that far. The important part is that you're keeping your pelvis neutral. 2 hip bones, pubic bones, same horizontal plane. What wants to happen as you take your toes toward the floor is the pelvis wants to go with you. So you go anterior pelvic tilt, accentuation of the lumbar curve, like you're throwing the baby out with bath water in order just to test the bath water, 9. So keep your safety pins, your nappy pins, hooking the iliac crest onto the ribs. So that as the toes are dropping down toward the floor, you're drawing up on the front of the hips to stabilize the pelvis. And you feel a little earthquake, don't kill yourself, maybe just go that far. Exhale to draw the legs back up. Remember with the exhalation, this sensation that the pelvic bones are drawing towards center. It's like you're hugging in towards the very center of your pelvis. Maybe do one more to draw the legs up and relax. Whew. Maybe take a second with the feet apart and the knees together and open and release the pelvis into the roller. Flutter your lips. Make sure there's no tension in your face. And let's try just rolling ourselves back up to sitting. If your ball is within reach and you want to put it back between your knees, do so. Exhale, fingers reaching forward. Draw the shoulders away from the ears. Head, neck, and shoulders off the floor. Hold over the back of the legs. Scoop the ice cream. Release the lumbar curve to the floor. Head, neck, and shoulders curling up. It may help to move your feet away a little bit to work through the lumbar, across the sacrum, and then being careful not to fall off your roller on the end of that. Let's take a little back extension. So, lying on your front, your palms are going to be on the roller. Start with the forehead released completely to the floor. Actually, why don't we go to just complete relaxation for a second on our front body. So just take one hand on the other. Release your forehead onto your hands. And maybe take a little rock side to side with your pelvis just to help release it because we were on the roller for quite some time. So your pelvis is just going tick-tock, side to side. And feel how that little tick-tock motion gets translated all the way up through your spine. Okay. So coming to stillness then with that pelvis. When you're just relaxed on the floor, you feel your pelvis moves into an anterior tilt. So if I exaggerate here, sticking your butt out behind you. So you want to ground your pubic bone into the floor without grabbing your butt muscles. So pubic bone is falling down toward the floor. You're zipping up from the pubic bone to the belly button to draw your pelvis into a neutral line as you're lying on your front body. You're reaching your legs out behind you, but not off the floor. Just feel like your legs are getting longer out behind you. And then we'll place those hands on the roller. Forehead is on the floor. It's a teeny tiny range of motion here. It's just a shoulder shrug. So it's shoulder blades move up toward the ears as the roller moves away from you. And then shoulder blades move away from the ears, down the back of the rib cage as the roller moves towards you. Just do that a couple of times. Shoulder blades up toward the ears as the roller moves away from you. Shoulder blades away from the ears as the roller moves towards you. And then we'll add on a little upper back extension. So we go inhale, shoulder blades toward the ears. Exhale, shoulder blades away from the ears. Keep the roller rolling towards your body as you inhale and take a little upper back extension. Nothing is happening in the glutes here, guys. The glutes are completely relaxed. Your legs are reaching away from you on the floor. Keep grounding the pubic bone into the floor. And be careful that you're not splaying your ribs in order to push your body up from your rib cage. So keep your corset closed across the front of the ribs. Exhale to relax down. Inhale, shrug, shoulders up toward the ears. Exhale, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale into a little upper back extension. And exhale to release down. Twice more. Go inhale, shoulder blades toward the ears. Exhale, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale into a little upper back extension. And exhale down. One last one. Inhale, shoulder blades toward the ears. Exhale, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale, little upper back extension. And exhale to release down. Let's do this. Inhale, shoulders toward the ears. Exhale, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale into the upper back extension and stay. Can you connect the fingertips, the palms, the arm, right down into the center of your pelvis? Can you release the right hand just a millimeter off your roller without moving your upper body? And the left hand, exhale, release the left hand just off the roller without moving your upper body, without grabbing your glutes, without releasing your belly button, without releasing your rib cage, without shortening your spine. It's actually really hard. Maybe your hand won't come off the roller, but just think towards that. And releasing down. Take your hands off the roller and just rest again with one hand on the other and forehead on your hands. And take the little tick-tock windshield wiper through your pelvis again. Releasing the sacrum and allowing that little snaky motion to move all the way up through your spine. And coming to stillness. Why don't we just take a little quad stretch? So if you reach your left hand around, bend your left knee, hold over the top of your left foot. You can keep your forehead down or your chin, doesn't really matter. The idea here is, though, as you draw the heel toward the sit bone, what can you do to keep your pelvis neutral? So when you draw your heel toward your sit bone, if you're on your left side, your left hip drops down toward the floor, right? So what do we have to do? Same as when we were on our backs, to stabilize the pelvis. I have to give a little bit more energy and attention through that right hip to stabilize the pelvis, a bit more energy and attention through the pubic bone. So when I draw that heel in, I want to go here and stick my buttock toward the ceiling, 9. Pubic bone lengthening down toward the floor, zipping up from the pubic bone to the belly button to keep your pelvis in a neutral line. And then you feel more of a stretch through your quad. Let me switch sides. So taking your right hand around, holding over the front of the right foot, drawing the heel toward the sit bone, grounding your left hip now toward the floor and your pubic bone toward the floor, zipping up from the pubic bone to the belly button, keeping energy up the top of the head in opposition to energy up the tailbone. So we're lengthening the spine, and then relaxing, releasing into the quad stretch. And let it go. Okay. Bring the palms flat on the floor, and we'll just take our little upper back extension here. Same position you were in on the roller, but maybe it's a little more comfortable because your arms are out in front of you, yeah? It's a little easier with your palms on the floor next to your ribcage to support your weight. Just peeling front body off of the floor and lengthening back into your child's pose. And maybe you can make fists with your hands. Give yourself a little pummeling massage over the back of the pelvis, on either side of the spine, pummeling over your lumbar, pummeling up on the back of the rib cage, as high up the back of the rib cage as you can go, pummeling over the sides of those ribs, pummel back over the back and the sides of the pelvis, into the sides of your thighs, and relax. And then rolling yourself back up to kneeling. And let's just finish with a little bit of love on that thymus gland. So if you take the tips of your fingers and just give yourself a little pummel over the breastbone. Take a few deep breaths and just keep tapping over the breastbone. So we recognize that the thymus gland is essential for the functioning of our immune system. But esoterically, we have this idea that the thymus gland is essential for helping us to regulate trauma. So the thymus gland is the heart protector, energetic heart protector. And so whenever we have a shock or a trauma in our lives, the thymus gland sort of catches it so that we can protect our hearts, so our hearts can literally keep beating. And so it's useful, healthy, just to pay a little attention to whatever is collecting in our thymus glands, trauma and shock, and release that. Or you could just say that this feels nice. And maybe that's enough of a reason to do it. And actually, why don't we just take that tapping right up over the top of our head too, because for no other reason than it feels good. So it's like heavy, heavy raindrops falling down on the top of your head, over the sides of your head, into your temples, over your forehead, over your jaw, into your cheeks, underneath your mouth, into your chin, under your nose, on either side of your nose. Keep that feeling of heavy, heavy raindrops. And then give your ears a little hello. So using your thumb and your forefinger, just holding over your earlobes and pulling them away from your head. And keep that motion going all the way up through the cartilage, through your earlobe. Just gently or more forcefully if you want to, pulling the air away from the skull. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. We will try again soon. Have a great day.